To be alone is the fate of all great minds, a fate sometimes lamented but always accepted as the cost of seeing too clearly. Arthur Schopenhauer. Society no longer burns its intellectuals at the stake, it just buries them under praise. It gives them honorary degrees, invites them to conferences, grants them applause, but only when they don't disturb the consensus. The truly dangerous thinkers, the ones who pierce the veil, who break the fourth wall of civilization, are rarely elevated. They are ignored, pathologized, or repackaged into something harmless. But beneath the polished smiles of institutions, something feral still stirs, the fear of uncontrolled intelligence, the kind that doesn't ask for permission to think, not the kind that conforms to the algorithm, not the kind that explains reality with elegant equations, but the kind that questions the entire framework in which those equations are asked. This type of mind doesn't merely invent, it dismantles. It doesn't flatter society's delusions, it exposes them. And that is the kind of intelligence society fears most. Because it cannot be domesticated, because it cannot be predicted, because it sees too much, too soon. Society doesn't say it hates intelligence. Instead, it does something far more insidious. It pretends to reward it while subtly punishing it whenever it disobeys the script. The real question is not why so many intelligent people feel alienated, it's why the collective unconscious of society responds to deep thinkers like a body reacting to a virus. Intelligence is not obedience, and that's the problem. Most people confuse intelligence with performance. They think it means remembering facts, solving puzzles, or using elegant words in job interviews. But true intelligence is something far rarer, and more subversive. It is not the ability to win at the game, it is the ability to see that the game itself is rigged, absurd, or corrupt. It asks the forbidden questions: who created these rules? Who benefits from my obedience? What illusions am I upholding just to feel safe? This is not mere cleverness, it is intellectual rebellion, and society is built on the suppression of rebellion. Political systems demand obedience, religions demand belief, economic systems require consumerism, educational systems reward memorization over insight. The truly intelligent person begins to see that these structures are not built for truth, they are built for stability, mass compliance, and narrative control. And when someone sees the cracks in that structure, they become a psychological threat, not just to institutions but to individuals who have built their identity on those illusions. He who thinks for himself disturbs the peace of those who don't. Friedrich Nietzsche. So the intelligent person begins to understand, speaking truth in an unconscious world is not noble, it is dangerous. And silence for them is not cowardice. It is often survival. The child who asked why. It starts early. A child asks, why do I have to go to church? Why do adults say one thing and do another? Why do I feel different from everyone else in class? But instead of being praised for curiosity, the child is met with discomfort. The adults shift in their chairs, teachers label them disruptive, parents say they ask too many questions, authority figures grow cold, and behind that coldness hides fear. Because this child unknowingly has exposed a truth. The emperor has no clothes. Every society depends on a shared dream, a myth that holds the tribe together. And when a child sees through that dream too early, the system doesn't offer answers. It offers punishment. Not because the child is wrong, but because the adults never answered those questions for themselves. So the child learns, understanding too much makes you different. Being different makes you a target, and being a target means suffering. They begin to dim their light, they edit their speech, they hide their questions behind polite silence. Not because they are ashamed, but because they've been trained by pain to protect their insight. And yet the mind keeps working, quietly, relentlessly, in private notebooks, in late-night thoughts, in secret readings. They learn to live in two worlds. The world of appearances, where masks are worn, and the world of awareness, where everything is seen clearly and silently. This split is the beginning of the exile of the intelligent. Not a physical exile, but a psychological one. A feeling of being among the crowd, but never of it. Of smiling in conversations, but screaming inside. Of playing roles, while watching the play unfold in absurdity. And it all began not with arrogance, but with a simple, innocent question: why? Schopenhauer saw it long before psychology gave it a name. He looked at the world and saw not rational beings pursuing truth, but automatons driven by blind will. The insatiable hunger to have, to possess, to dominate, to be seen. What most called life, he called striving without meaning, distraction dressed up as purpose. The philosopher, the truly intelligent, is not caught in this frenzy. He watches, from the edge, from exile. Talent hits a target no one else can hit, genius hits a target no one else can see. Schopenhauer. But what happens when a genius points to a target no one else believes is there? He becomes a threat to the tribe, not because he's violent, not because he's wrong, but because he shatters the shared hallucination that holds society together. So the group does what it always does to threats it doesn't understand. It calls him arrogant. It ridicules his detachment. It brands his truth as madness. It offers him applause but only after he's dead. Because what the intelligent person reveals is not just innovation, it is the deep irrelevance of what came before. That religion, as practiced, became a fear control mechanism. That education was designed to train compliance, not curiosity. That politics became a performance of puppets for a distracted crowd. That love, as understood by most, is merely a negotiated trauma bond, not awakening. These aren't theories, they are weapons. And most people would rather kill the messenger than rewrite their sacred script. The genius does not choose exile, he is exiled by default, cast out not with fire but with silence, because that is the most efficient execution, erasure. Human beings don't just defend their bodies, they defend their beliefs. And like the immune system, society reacts violently to foreign bodies of thought that threaten its coherence. Truth, if it enters too suddenly, feels like infection, and so the collective psyche develops defenses. Denial. That's just pessimism. Projection. He's bitter, he must have failed. Minimization. That's just his opinion. Aggression. Who does he think he is? This is not a bug, it is a survival feature of the herd. The masses do not want thinkers, they want mirrors. They want approval disguised as philosophy. They want ideas that keep the dream alive, not ones that burn it to the ground. So when the intelligent person walks in with clarity sharper than illusion can withstand, he is treated like a virus. The genius is mocked for being too abstract. The whistleblower is erased by bureaucracy. The visionary is diagnosed, discredited, or disappeared. The truth teller is told to be realistic. Why? Because what he offers is not hope, it's disillusionment. And most people would rather be comforted by a beautiful lie than wrecked by a liberating truth. The irony? Society will only honor these people once they are no longer dangerous. Statues are built for those who once had their tongues cut out. You learned their names in school, but you were never told why they were hated while alive. Giordano Bruno. He said the stars were other suns, that the universe was infinite, that God was not in a book, so the church burned him alive. Not for being wrong, but for being uncontainable. Socrates. He asked questions that exposed the ignorance of powerful men, so they sentenced him to drink poison, under the charge of corrupting the youth, because thinking in Athens had become a subversive act. Nikola Tesla. He wanted to give the world free energy, tapped from the planet itself. So financiers abandoned him, scientists mocked him, and the system let him die alone, while it now runs on the legacy it refused to fund. Chris Langan measured IQ near 200, but he couldn't follow academic orthodoxy, couldn't pretend to be impressed by superficial minds with inflated titles. So he was cast out, too intelligent to be tolerated, too unbending to be absorbed. None of these men were cast out for lack of value. They were rejected because their value was non-compliant. They refused to sell their clarity for comfort. They didn't play the game, and for that, the game turned on them. Their crime wasn't falsehood, it was seeing too much. And we, as a species, have a long history of persecuting the ones who see too far ahead. Because in a world addicted to illusions, reality is the only sin. There's a peculiar grief that lives only in the minds of the deeply intelligent. It is not the grief of failure, but of perception, of seeing too much, too clearly, too soon. What others celebrate, you question. What others worship, you dissect. What others obey, you walk past like ruins from a dead civilization. This is the paradox of the awakened mind. The more it understands, the harder it becomes to belong. For most people, life is a stage, the roles are assigned, the lines are memorized, the applause is automatic. But for the intelligent, the illusion falters. The laughter feels scripted, the purpose feels hollow. The costumes no longer conceal the fear beneath the faces, and so they retreat. They don't become arrogant, they become quiet, not out of elitism but out of exhaustion. Because every word they try to speak gets filtered through ears trained not to understand, but to defend. You're too intense. Why can't you just enjoy things? Not everything needs to be so deep. You think too much, and so they stop trying. Instead, they build sanctuaries within their own skulls. They read books older than empires. They write thoughts that no one will read. They observe others like anthropologists watching a lost tribe worship mirrors. Some become artists, painting what can't be said. Others become cynics, laughing not at people, but at the machinery behind them. And some simply become ghosts, moving through the world with eyes that see, but mouths that stay shut. But beneath the silence, a fire burns. Not of superiority, not of disdain, but of longing, a longing for truth, for connection without camouflage, for one person, just one, to understand without translation, to see without being taught, to feel without being told, to meet in that sacred space where minds don't perform, they resonate. But most never find it, because in a world trained to fear depth, those who dwell there remain unseen. Schopenhauer never promised salvation. He didn't romanticize enlightenment. He did not believe that society could be saved by thinkers, because he understood that society was not built to be enlightened, but to be functional. And the philosopher is never functional. He is dangerous by design. To Schopenhauer, the fate of the thinker was not applause, but exile. Not as punishment, but as inevitability. The intelligent don't flee from people because they despise them. They flee because noise deafens truth. Because performance chokes authenticity. Because in a world where masks are mandatory, the face becomes offensive. To see clearly is to stand outside the carnival, to watch the games without playing, to hear the music without dancing, to know that the prizes are plastic, the clowns are crying, and the ringmaster is selling illusions. And in that clarity, you lose your place. You are not cast out by decree. You simply fade from relevance. You are no longer entertaining, no longer useful, no longer manageable. And so you drift into solitude. But this solitude is not loneliness. It is sacred space. It is the final refuge of the real. There, the intelligent do not perform. They see. And in that vision, something priceless emerges. A clarity untouched by culture. A knowing untainted by ideology. A truth not given by the tribe but born in the silence of the self. And in a world of shadows, the real is the rarest thing of all. Then you already know. You know what it's like to stare at smiling faces and wonder what's hiding behind them. To ask a question and feel the temperature in the room drop. To shrink your vocabulary so others don't flinch. To feel more at home in a 500-year-old book than in your own living room. You've been told your intelligence is intimidating, that your questions are inappropriate, that your need for truth is too much. So you stopped asking. You smiled when you didn't mean it. You shrunk yourself to fit inside a world built for smaller minds. But deep down, you know, you're not broken, you're not cold, you're not too much. You're not failing at being human, you're just awake. And in a sleeping world, wakefulness feels like exile. But that exile has a purpose. It guards your clarity. It protects your integrity. It preserves the last spark of something uncorrupted, something ancient, defiant, and unrepeatable. So don't kill it. Don't dilute it. Don't trade it for applause. You don't need to explain yourself to the blind. You don't need to dim your mind to be loved. Just keep your eyes open. Keep reading. Keep building. Keep watching. And remember what Schopenhauer warned and promised. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. If he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for only when he is alone is he truly free. You may walk alone, but you are not lost. You are not invisible. You are not defeated. You are simply, and terrifyingly, awake. And that is enough.